Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Central Pennsylvania Shrimp Tank, brought to you from our new studio temporarily here in Dillsburg, the metropolis of Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm your host today, Nathan Imboden, and you can find replays of all of these broadcasts we're doing on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/centralpa. Also, be sure to go to your favorite podcast app, click that subscribe button, search for the Shrimp Tank Central PA, and then click that subscribe button to keep up to date on all these interviews from our amazing entrepreneurs. Also, like our Facebook page so you can keep current on all the content we put out. And we're continuing on in our series we're calling In the Crosshairs of Corona. And we wanted to do this to allow our Central PA-based entrepreneurs to have a voice in what this shutdown, what the stay-at-home orders, what all this has done to their operations, how they've had to manage through good and bad. We say all the time, this is a podcast by business owners, for business owners, helping to teach the message of entrepreneurship. And that's good, bad, and ugly. So we're bringing it to you in the midst of this coronavirus crisis. And today we have another returning guest, Charles Mitchell, who is the president and CEO of the Commonwealth Foundation, a fantastic organization that partners with entrepreneurs and small business owners to help be a voice to their local representatives in the areas and the communities they live, work, and serve. So we're going to get his perspective, again, a unique perspective because he's the CEO of an organization that's had to deal with this, but he's also in the minds and ears of a lot of businesses that are in our area and has a really good handle on what they're having to deal with as well. So without further ado, Charles, welcome back on the show. It's interesting to be doing it Zoom to Zoom, but you know, it is what it is, right?
I mean, life would be better if we were having cocktails together, but hopefully we'll return.
What did you make me? The George Washington? Was that the?
Yeah, if there's one thing you should be able to count on me on, it's a patriotic cocktail, right?
I love it. I love it. You know, the founding fathers had a great idea in that cocktail, I think. Although I'm not sure they made it back then, but you know, I'll let him. We should let him take credit.
But George Washington really did drink Applejack.
Yeah,
so that was a great idea.
Beautiful.
It's a wonderful thing.
Beautiful. Well, again, welcome to the show. Why don't you give us just a little bit of an update on the organization, the Commonwealth Foundation, what you guys had to do in pivoting with the stay-at-home orders, with the shutdown and all that kind of stuff, just so we can get a kind of landscape on where your organization is, and then we'll pivot to the organizations you're dealing with.
Yeah, well, you know, it's been interesting, Nathan. We believe in personal responsibility. And I do take, as the CEO, this public health crisis seriously. So we made the decision to send everybody home before the governor said we had to. And the truth is, you know, in our business, that's much more doable than it is for a lot of other businesses. Of course, part of what we do is we have contact with elected officials, and you can do that from home, but it's very different. So there, you know, there certainly are some negative impacts to work from home, but generally speaking, I would say compared to almost anybody that I have contact with, that was a lot easier of a decision to make and to implement for us. We also, you know, there's lots of nonprofits out there that run in all sorts of different ways, some of which I agree with, some of which I don't. But, you know, we have known throughout the good economy of the last few years that there was going to be a downtime. I never would have guessed it was this, but we knew there was that time coming. And so we prepared for that day. And we built up substantial financial reserves, you know, not for being able to do this for years, but so that we could withstand something like this. And so I'm happy to say our team is doing well. And, you know, honestly, the biggest thing to handle, and this I think ties to probably your next question too, we've never been busier. I mean, you might think, you know, there might not be many people thinking about public policy in the midst of a pandemic. Maybe we thought that at the beginning, but as you know, and as I'm sure everybody who's watching knows, public policy, especially at the state level, has never been more important to a lot of people. A lot of people are rediscovering, holy cannoli, the governor has a lot of power.
Right.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
And so we've been, you know, our people have been, they've been from home. But they've been working around the clock, and I'll say for myself and for most of my colleagues, we've never been busier. And frankly, I think our work has never been more urgent than it is now.
Yeah, I would echo that. You know, I said one thing that that this really revealed, probably to a lot of people, I know myself included a little bit to an extent, is how much power the governors have related to what the president has. And everybody focuses on presidential elections. And yes, they're there to set kind of broad-based guidelines and large orders. But at the state level, there is so much power. And this time has really, I think, exposed that. And you're absolutely right. I think public policy and people wanting to engage in that has become extremely popular. My hope is, and I know your organization works tirelessly to promote this, but that people would just get more engaged and then stay more engaged and just be a voice to those local representatives. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I'm not surprised you guys are busier than ever, especially now, especially as this has continued to drag out and continued to be delayed. I think it's going to be, I hope you're ready. I hope you like working, because it's probably going to continue, which is good. But so talk a little bit about the organizations, because and maybe, I don't know if you can give a range of, you're dealing with all different industries, but do you have a kind of employee range group that of entrepreneurs that you partnered with? That I don't know if you have that off the top of your head.
Sure. Yeah, it varies. Fundamentally, I would say, the people who make the Commonwealth Foundation go are entrepreneurs and small businesses. Now, of course, that term can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. I work closely with people who have single-digit employee counts. I work with people who have multiple hundreds, in some cases, multiple thousands. But generally speaking, the kind of people I'm talking about are people who are deeply rooted in our state. Generally, companies that are privately held. So and their decisions and their time horizon is generational, as opposed to quarterly earnings reports. And I'm not saying, obviously, if companies want to go public, that's their decision. I'm not the guy who's going to say that should be illegal or anything like that. Yeah. But I am saying, my observation has been that people who are rooted in a place, who believe that their grandchildren are going to grow up there and that the grandchildren of their employees are going to grow up there, tend to have a long-term interest in that place flourishing. And that's the kind of people that I work with every day at Commonwealth Foundation. I have to say, I'm amazed by what a lot of people are doing, not only to confront the immediate adversity, but to even to find ways that they can serve not only their clients, but to serve our country during this time. And there's some great examples of that I suspect we'll end up talking about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some of the biggest headaches that most of these businesses that you're representing or partnering with going through? Because, hearing a lot of stuff as it relates to the PPP loan applications, the waiver process, all sorts of different things. But what are you seeing? What are most people struggling with the most, maybe even now today, as we're sitting, 7-8 weeks into this shutdown?
Yeah, I would say, Nathan, look, I could go on and on about the PPP or whatever. You and I could do that for the next couple hours, probably. Mm-hmm. The thing that I see the entrepreneurs that I work with being the most upset about are the outrageous things that negatively impact the people they serve, be that their employees or be that, most importantly, their customers. And I'll give you a quick example. There was some TV news stories that came out in our area recently. There might have been some about a 55+ community where, because the governor's order included completely shutting down all construction, which was much more radical than many other states, we had a rash of vulnerable people, elderly people, being threatened with homelessness because they had sold their old home. They were trying to move into their new home, but construction was stopped on the new home. They had a closing date. Realtors are shut down. Everything's shut down. And so, in a time when what we say is what we're trying to do is, manage a public health crisis, which I don't dispute it is, you're creating another public health crisis by making it that the most vulnerable people to this disease have nowhere to live. As an example, a man named Tom Slattery came forward here in our area, trying to move into a community in Mechanicsburg. Now, thankfully, we've worked, as I'm sure your listeners know, with a lot of entrepreneurs and also with legislators wonderful who represents the area where you're sitting right now, Nathan, Dawn Kiefer from Dillsburg, and have been able to put a number of pieces of legislation through the General Assembly to fix some of this stuff, which, yeah, of course it affects business owners, but it also affects people like Mr. Slattery, and sometimes really threatens their safety.
Right.
And the interesting thing with Tom Wolf, Governor Wolf, which I'm sure you don't get too far into this, but he's vetoed most of those pieces of legislation and then turned around and did what they said anyway, which, my view is, President on it, you might have heard of it. It's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. That's kind of the bottom line of the paperweight he had on his desk. And that's my view on what's going on right now. The entrepreneurs I work with, they don't care if they don't care if they get the credit. They don't care if representatives get the credit. What they most care about is people like Mr. Slattery being able to live their lives and be safe in the midst of this. That's the most important thing that I've seen is unintended consequences of government action that hurts people. Yeah.
Well, and it helps to, I think, bring to light the ripple effect of what businesses have. John Petrie, who owns Mother Hubbard's Custom Kitchens, was on talking about Pennsylvania being a major hub for cabinet manufacturing. And when all that got shut down, it basically shut down the distribution of cabinets to the rest of the country. So even though the rest of the country was able to, or some areas were able to continue in construction, they couldn't get the product they needed to finish jobs anyways, because that was done. And so that's just another example. And you're right, the unintended consequences. And I think Mark Cuban said it best. So he was trying to get baited into slamming President Trump, and he didn't do it. He's not a fan of President Trump. So I think it was assumed it was going to be a slam dunk. He's going to slander him, blah, blah, blah. But he said it, I think, perfectly originally, which was, look, everybody wants to be in a decision-making mode where it's ready, aim, fire. And early on, we were in a mode where it was ready, fire, aim, because there was so much that we didn't know. And hopefully, now that the aim, it sounds like the aim is getting to be more in line with ready, aim, fire, rather than, well, we just need to fire off and then make adjustments afterwards. But these are some of the things that eventually, unfortunately, come up when you are in that ready, fire, aim mentality. But like you said, we have great representatives in our area who are trying to, I don't want to say expose this, but in a way expose this, bring to light is maybe a better word. Yeah.
I mean, you have to expose it in order to fix it.
Right.
But exposing it isn't the goal. Fixing it's the goal.
Yeah.
And again, that's what the entrepreneurs I work with are focused on, Nathan. It's not really about, I mean, of course it affects them and it affects the business, but ultimately what are businesses created to do? They're created to serve people. And if you serve people, then of course they pay money.
Right.
That's what the people I work with care about. And that, look, that's, I think, there's varying explanations for this. I have my own explanations that, have more to do with the God factor, but, people have their own explanations, but it's often a thing that good things come from bad things. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's honestly one of the good things that I hope comes from this very bad thing, which is that a lot of people who haven't taken seriously what the state government can and cannot do start taking it seriously, because it really does, it's clear in this crisis that the actions of, for example, Governor Wolf or Representative Kiefer or Senator Regan or whatever, they really do affect your life and the lives of the people that you care most about. And the way that a business owner or an entrepreneur can best affect that is not by swooping in and out when there's a crisis. It's by latter-day Ben Franklin or latter-day George Washington or latter-day John Hancock. Those guys were all entrepreneurs. And they didn't just swoop in, when there was a war or something else. They took that responsibility seriously as a matter of stewardship throughout their lives. And that's what I hope. I hope this is a wake-up call to some of our friends and neighbors who could have a positive, and are having, I think right now, a positive impact on pushing our government in the right direction. Let's not forget that when, God willing, we get through this.
Absolutely. All right, so let me ask you, on the heels of that comment, what now as listeners, some of us might be entrepreneurs, might have our own businesses, some of us might just be listeners who are an employee or work for somebody, but what can we do right now, whether it's to affect change or to get involved? What are some suggestions you have as we think about that positive change going forward for all of us?
Yeah, well, look, there's two things I would say. One, these discussions, what kind of public policy we're going to have, and that seems like a heady thing, like maybe I'll think about that tomorrow. No, it's never been more urgent than it is right now. And secondly, if you're watching this, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, the beautiful thing, I really think this is the way our founders intended it. I'm a little bit of a cheeseball about our founders, I'll confess that. I think this is the way the founders intended it. It is not an accident that the state government is so powerful. As opposed to the national government. Why? Because it's supposed to be closer to the people. And I will promise you, as somebody who works with people like Representative Kiefer a lot every day, it's what my organization does. They want to hear from you. Yeah. They really do. And it's not that hard to get their cell phone numbers and to be one of the people who can tell them on a daily basis, hey, you know, you or Governor Wolf or whoever, you might have meant well by what you did when we were in ready, fire, aim mode. But here's the negative impact it's having on. Let's fix this. And as you know, Nathan, and as I'm sure every listener knows, there's lots more things like that that still yet to be fixed. I'm thankful that I believe Governor Wolf has started to listen to some of the things that a lot of us have said over the last few weeks, unlike, for example, Governor Whitmer in Michigan and Governor Cuomo in New York and some of these others that are on TV all the time. I think he has started to listen, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. Now's the time for anybody listening to play their part in that. And if you want to play your part in that, whether you're an entrepreneur or somebody who just clicked your friend's Facebook feed today, whatever, go to CommonwealthFoundation.org. That's what our institution is here to do. And, you know, Nathan, as you know, I mean, we've worked alongside Nathan to do these very things. It actually isn't that hard. It's a matter. I mean, it's kind of like what my wife said to me recently. My wife said, "Look, you know, you hate to exercise. If you get corona, you're going to need strong lungs. So like now would be a good time to start exercising." That's kind of how I look at this, right? Like you may not have wanted to put yourself in the public policy business, but you probably should have been doing it all along. And we're not going to fight about that. My wife's not going to fight with me about how I didn't exercise a month ago. Yeah. She's glad I'm doing it now. And that's the sensibility I hope a lot of us adopt about this responsibility we have to our country.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that because it reminds me of a phrase that's come up in our household recently, which is behind every strong man is an even stronger woman. And this whole podcast series was brought on by my wonderful wife, who challenged me directly one time because I was saying about, you know, at home that this isn't right. We got to try to figure something else out. We got to look more, you know, broadly, holistically, whatever it is. And she says to me, "Hey, Nathan, I really appreciate you saying that, but are you actually going to do something about it?" I said, "Ooh, yeah, that's okay. Let's do something about it." Yeah. So yeah, good for you. I mean, it's true, right? So that's a great practical step people can take. You know, get involved. As Charles mentioned, we've been working with the Commonwealth Foundation in various ways. They are an extremely invaluable resource to help you figure out how to get engaged, the best ways to get connected with your representatives. So it's a great starting point if you haven't done that yet. So thank you for that tip, Charles. And as I mentioned earlier before we got on here, I like to try to wrap up with a positive note as well. I mean, what you just described was a positive step or action step that we can take. But do you have any suggestions of either businesses, entrepreneurs, whatever, that have just gone out of the way to either make a difference or just be real positive in these last 8 weeks?
Yeah, you know, I'll give you one more, and this hasn't gotten hardly any press coverage, so I hope that nobody's heard it, and then we can have some fun together. There's a business in our area up in State College that I love. It's called Seco Logistics, SEKO. Basically, what they're in the business of is logistics in healthcare. Okay. Seems like an important thing right now, huh? Uh-huh. And they worked with one of their customers, Stryker, to address one of the most critical aspects of this crisis. Stryker realized there was going to be a huge need for hospital beds. And if you've ever seen a hospital bed, they're not very portable. Mm-hmm. So to make a long story short, in 1 week, Stryker invented, they put their engineers in a room, would let them out till they fixed it. They invented a super portable, foldable, you know, really easy hospital bed that didn't exist before. Wow. And they worked together with Seco to set up more than 20 warehouses to distribute them to the hardest hit areas in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Louisiana. How cool is that? That is cool. No government told them to do that. Right. That was entrepreneurs working together to help people. Awesome. That's the best one we've had yet. Maybe the best one we have this whole time. I'm not sure, but
That is a great story. You're right. We haven't heard of that yet. So I'm excited when that starts to get out. I'd love to say that we're going to be the breaking news on pushing this out to the press. So awesome. Great example, Charles. Well, thank you again for coming on, sharing some of your insight again from both sides of the coin as a business owner and being in the ears and the minds of business owners. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to come back on.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody at home, again, that was Charles Mitchell, President and CEO of the Commonwealth Foundation. If you are looking to get engaged, and even if you haven't been looking, you should go to their website, look up the Commonwealth Foundation. If you need help figuring out how to partner and be a voice with your local representatives, they're a great place to start. Now's the time to help make our voices heard, whatever you believe. It doesn't matter. Just be active, be engaged in our local politics, our local governing bodies, so that they have an understanding of what is actually going on here around us. Look, we thank you for joining us again for another episode here in the Crosshairs of Corona. We'll see you next week on the Central PA Shrimp Tank.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.